Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Michael P. Senadenos. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, A Different Kind of Hero. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, as well as barnesandnoble.com, and also check out the publishing company, cityofbooks.com, to gather your copies today. Now, this is the anchor for today's interview, but also check out another book that Mike has written, and that one is called Hard Love. Both of which, again, are available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and cityofbooks.com. And if you haven't figured it out already, Mike was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by that same publishing company. Now listen to me. If you're a writer out there, you have a book that you've written, although you find yourself now at a crossroads because you need help moving the book you just wrote. Well, I'm going to give you some fantastic advice. You got to contact City of Books. They're one in the best in the business to do it. And frankly, people, this is what they specialize in. So as I mentioned before, head on over to cityofbooks.com today and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is going to help maximize your creative endeavors. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Mike here on the line. Now, the moment you start to do research on his book, A Different Kind of Hero, you're going to understand the journey you're about to take. And a journey it is, okay? Similar to life, it's filled with obstacles. And as you travel along the journey with the protagonist that you're going to find in the narrative, you're going to realize some of the obstacles that he faces and how life sometimes will point you in a different direction, right? And listen, who amongst us can just relate to that? I mean, you're growing up, you're in your teenage and young adult years, you have a clear perception of where you think your life is going to go, and then all of a sudden something happens and completely derails you and sends you in a different path entirely. Well, yeah, can be a bit jarring, can be a bit shocking. Well, here's the underlying message to be found in that. Is listen, it gets back to, and my believers out there, you're going to know what I'm talking about here. It gets back to God is good. One message that I have always utilized in my life and have always been a very firm believer in is that God doesn't put anything in your path that you're not strong enough to overcome. Listen, it may not be what you expected. It may not be what you planned. But as long as you have your relationship with God, as long as your faith is in it, you're always in good hands and you're going to be taken care of. I love that notion. I know you all do as well. And I promise you, this book has layers, okay? So there's a lot more to it, and we're just going to scratch the surface here today. By the time we've concluded, you're going to run to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, cityofbooks.com, and purchase your copies because you're going to understand how valuable of a resource this book really is. And at the end of the day, don't take my word for it. Take Mike's. It's his book. He's written it, and he is going to be able to articulate it much better than I ever could. So sit back and strap in because we're about to take you on a wonderful ride. Michael, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest with us today. How you doing, man?
Benji, thank you for having me, and I'm doing well. And how about you, Benji?
I'm fantastic, brother. Better than I deserve, and I appreciate the question. Listen, we're looking forward to this. I know you thanked me for having you as a guest, but Mike, you started it, okay? You had to write this fantastic narrative for us to invite you on the network. So thank you for creating it. Thank you very much for being here to discuss it. Now, before we go into the words that are on those pages, I do think it's important to learn a little bit more about yourself. So let's start there. Tell us more about your background, Michael.
Well, let's see. I graduated from high school in Indianapolis, Indiana. In fact, I'm getting ready to go back to a 50-year reunion. I graduated from Indiana University in 1980. I moved to California in that same year with my wife, Susan. And for the past almost 40 years, I've run my practice as a certified public accountant here in Fremont, California. I've coached high school basketball for the past 20-plus years, with the majority of those years being for girls varsity basketball. And I have 4 children and 9 grandchildren.
Wow. Well, there you have it. Well, listen, a lot to unpack there, Michael. First and foremost, congratulations on what sounds like a beautiful family that you have surrounded yourself with. Nothing but continued success to you and all of your loved ones. And Mike, listen, I wasn't planning on going here so quickly, but after that opening, I can't see myself going anywhere else. I want to talk about inspiration here for a second, and I'm starting to connect certain dots because I know the main protagonist in your book, his name is Indiana. Well, now your background, okay, so I'm piecing that together. Maybe an assumption, but I'm following you here. Background in coaching a bit, okay, so your connection to sports, I see that. But Michael, your career choice was an accountant. Where does writing fit into all this, man? Talk to us about what inspired you to write these books.
Well, yeah, so Indiana, I actually have a grandson named Indiana. And really, I mentioned this to you before. I wrote these books years and years and years ago, and a lot of both books have a lot of real life experience in them. But the biggest inspiration for me right now is that if I have any gift at all of being able to pass the word out about God and what, challenges he does, challenges you have in your life and how you can overcome that with your faith in God, then that's really been my main inspiration for both of these books.
Yeah. I love it. I love it, man. Thank you very much for entertaining me. I appreciate it. Michael, without further ado, The Anchor, as I mentioned, is all about your fantastic book, A Different Kind of Hero. Tell us a little bit more about it.
So A Different Kind of Hero is about a young man who grew up with a military father that he admired and wanted to follow in his footsteps to a certain degree. And his father had played college football in the Naval Academy. And so he chose that path to play college football in the Naval Academy. And from the academy, he decided that his father had opted to go into regular boot camp instead of going on as an officer of the Naval. And so Indiana, the main character in this book, or the primary purpose of this book, or in this way, was for him to follow in his footsteps of his father, which was when he graduated Naval Academy, he opted to not go directly in as an officer, but he chose to go into regular boot camp. And while he was going into the academy, his longtime girlfriend became pregnant, and so he got married, and that kind of changed his direction a little bit. He struggled with making sure that going into the academy, having a strong Christian faith, and having to deal with his time as a service Marine, that the struggles would be one of having his faith get challenged by what would be presented to him in possible combat situations, for example. And this, coupled with having been married at a young age and having a child at a very early age, well, it made his life a little bit more of a challenge.
Two-part question here with this next one, Mike. But first and foremost, who would you say is your intended reader with the book? And I know we've already started to go into the second one, but I think it's so important, it's worth doubling down on and really re-impressing. What is the main message that you hope your readers take from the book after completing it?
That's a great question. And full disclosure, anyone who is reading this book, anybody who wants to read it would be my intended target. I've had many of my Christian friends, as well as many of my non-Christian friends, read the book, and they love the storyline. And to me, that the fact that they want to read the book, that they had fun reading the book, and it had a Christian message, whether they're Christian or non-Christian, I was able to have that message get passed along to them as far as, like I said earlier, God is good all the time.
Mm-hmm. People, again, you got to head on over to Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Pick up copies of A Different Kind of Hero by Michael P. Senadenos. And while you're at it, check out his other novel, Hard Love, both of which, again, available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Next question here for you, Mike. Curiosity here for myself, but can you describe a moment when your own storyline or characters took on a life of their own, surprising even you as the author?
Well, that's a solid question. Like I said, in both books, there are life experiences. I myself never was in the military. I have a lot of family that have been in the military. I got a lot of guidance from them on certain aspects of that book when I wrote it. But a lot of the situations that come up in that book, in both books, were from real life experiences to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. And so that was part of the inspiration for part of how I came up with the idea for each one of these books.
Yeah. Well, listen, diving down that rabbit hole further here with this next one, Mike, but if you could enter the world of the book that you've created, which page would you land on and why?
Wow, with a book that I created, which page would I land on? Well, I think in this book, without giving away too much of the detail of it, Benji, there is a particular time when a young man who's not the main character in the book comes to the realization that he can change his past based on his relationship or non-relationship with the main character of this book. And his past being one of more of destruction into one more of God faith. Mm-hmm. Put it that way.
People, as I mentioned, this is not the only book that Michael has written, okay? He has another one called Hard Love, and we do have a few extra minutes here, so I want to take a quick opportunity and go into it briefly. But again, we're just going to scratch the surface. I've already mentioned it and where you have to go. Mike, since we have a few extra minutes here as we close out, talk to us about your other book, Hard Love, and what to expect with that one.
That one actually has a little bit more of my life experience in it. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it's fiction, but that one, as I mentioned, that's about a young man that has a young daughter, and tragedy hits that family, and it's a basketball family, which I have a lot of basketball in my life, and it's just a journey about how he had to overcome the difficulties in his life and some of the challenges of the outside interferences you would have that you could come across. And his story is no different. There was definitely outside interference that caused a lot of the hardship and how to deal with that and how he dealt with that. And that, again, it was a lot of fun in the book. I used for a lot of my high school players that I coach, I give them nicknames. And so a lot of those nicknames are used in that book. And like I said, I used a lot of the stories over the years of coaching that I picked up that I've used in that book as well. It's a fun book. It's got a lot of action. And to me, it's got a good story.
Absolutely. People, listen, what I love so much about both of these narratives, first and foremost, from an entertainment standpoint, listen, if you just need a book to help pass the time on a rainy day, you got it, okay? These books have what you're looking for, but also there's substance there. There's something concrete that you could take to the bank. And I love that. There's so much here to offer. And listen, can we just call a spade a spade? Given the world that we're currently residing in, with all of the division that we currently are experiencing, with all of the obstacles that life just hands us on a day-to-day basis anyway, why not have books of these magnitude that can help you pass the time, but also have great positive life lessons that you can take home with you as well? This is why these books need to be on your shelf. And I'm going to take it a step further. They're even better gifts for you to get for someone else to put on theirs. head on over to Amazon, cityofbooks.com today, as well as Barnes & Noble. Pick up your copies, first and foremost, of A Different Kind of Hero, followed by Hard Love. Both of these are fantastic books you want to add to your shelf. You can thank me later. Mike, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. A wonderful honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Oh, Benji, thank you. And you got serious skills. I got a little teary-eyed when you were talking there. That was great.